fade out properly, and then get the thing. Okay, excellent. And then we go to me solo and hi, welcome to the show, everybody. It's Hal Sparks, Megaworldwide. Sorry, I'm a little bit late, but I was doing what I have to do for this show on occasion, which is research. It's rather unfortunate. I'm going to quit out of that program. That I have to watch some of the shit I have to watch. It's it's a little tiresome, I gotta say, but it's necessary so that you don't have to. That at the very least, I can show you the least of it, so you can get the point and know what the hell is going on without you having to like digest or absorb any of this, like this jackassery. And by the way, can I just what kind of jackassery, you're asking, Hal? Well, on the one hand, we have our standard run-of-the-mill jackassery, and I don't know, CSL, I'll beg your pardon, but I've looked into a bunch of the stuff around who's running interference for Hegseth so far, and it really is, insofar as I can find, it's just Megyn Kelly. And she's not doing a great job, by the way. She's cocking it up regularly. But that's pretty much it. I mean, I know the vice president came out and said a couple of things in support of him, but it's not good. It's not. There are not a lot of people lining up to protect this dickhead. Literally, Glenn Beck is doing shows on the lab leak theory. And everybody's talking about like whether this SCOTUS is ruling with Trump and other, it's amazing. Okay, so let's jump straight into this though. I'll show you a little bit of something, and then we're gonna kind of, pardon me, but we're gonna monkey branch from one thing to the other, so that you can kind of get a package of this, and then we'll jump into some silly stuff because we do have a gift that I don't. CSL, I love you, man. I adore you, and I love you, and I want to have your babies. The fact that you are able to I'll show you guys what he found. This, oh shit, hold on. That's well, that's fine. That's Cliff's Ed show, and there's whatever. I have to reset the screen again. Is that what the thing is? Screen capture. Change the properties. Go back to here and this, and then jump back to. This guy, 25 by 1080, something like that. And then this is back to this. Then it does that. There we go. There it is. Oh, so good when it happens, when it actually works. I mean, we both know they phone in a lot of shit when it comes to Greg Kelly's show. But ratings must be eating dick right now, because all he does is suck up to Trump, and you can see that anywhere on right-wing media. I don't know what the hell these guys think makes their show special across right-wing media, because all they can do is kiss his ass. Like, they can't even, say what you will about, the Democratic side of the media sphere, especially in independent media like myself and Midas Touch and those that shall not be named and the like. But there's a lot of variety in people that might have criticisms with the Biden administration when it was happening and stuff. And everybody was really having an issue with that whole lesser of two evils thing, weren't they? But you could pick things that you didn't like and you were allowed to discuss them. None of these fuckers are allowed to veer away from the talking points at all. So they are desperate to villainize somebody so that they can, they could do a show about some shit. So this is amazing. This is all going to be about how, like, Count Chocula, who is, I think Greg probably thinks is a black vampire, which is not done. Honestly, it can't be done. But like, this is just going to be magic. I can just tell. So hang out, chat room. Before we get to that though, I'm going to dip into a little bit of the one person I have found that is coming to Pete Hegseth's defense. And I got to say, she is half-assing it. The first few bouts, and we saw a couple of them a few days ago, she was pretty forward in her support of Hegseth. it's starting to get a little watered down. And I don't know what the title of this one means at all. Hegseth saga gets personal. Pete Hegseth saga gets personal, and whether more leaks and arrests are coming with Lowry and MBD. I don't know who these guys are, but or gals, I don't know who they are. But none of us are quite sure what. Well, we'll find out. We'll watch and we'll find out. I don't need to know ahead of time, but this is the only site I can find where people are really running interference in any way for Pete Hegseth, besides the administration themselves and the standard talking. Okay, here we go.
Let's talk about Pete Hegseth, who is in day whatever of an ongoing firestorm. It's been building for a while, but it's getting, I don't know if it's at its apex now or if we're about to get to the apex, but it's climbing.
Well, then it wouldn't be at its apex. If it's climbing, it's not good. But at least, hey, congratulations on being able to see that.
Where he fired these alleged leakers. He accused these three guys, the Pentagon, and Pete signed off of it.
Signed off of it? On it. He signed off on it, But let's be clear. Pete the Pentagon not only fired these guys, they were escorted from the building, and Pete Hegseth particularly shit on them in multiple interviews. He did it on fucking Easter Sunday. He did it on Brian Kilmeade's interview with him on Fox and Friends. Stop. No. He shit on these guys. And these are his dudes. This isn't the Pentagon did it and he was like, oh, okay, if you twist my arm. He actively shit on these guys. Called them leakers, said once a leaker, always a leaker. If we find out they're not, then great. But, obviously they were doing it. And he's run no protection for them at all, especially on a personal level. I was working vocabulary, but it means very little. I understand.
Guys at the Pentagon of leaking material that would have included top secret information to NBC News about attack plans in Panama.
We don't have attack plans in Panama, shithead. We had troop movements in Panama. We're not invading Panama, you weirdo. The attack plans part was what Pete Hegseth leaked out on Signal. And also, nice trying to soften that, there's attack plans going out the door everywhere. So if he does it, it's a general problem that you can generally fix.
And said, we've gotten our guys. We feel satisfied. We're going to continue our investigation. But, I'm satisfied these are the people involved. They've all denied it. And then, was the subject of a barrage of bad press every day thereafter. That happened on Friday. You had this guy over in the comms shop who, I guess...
Yeah, this fucking guy. Oh, yeah, the guy who Hegseth brought in personally.
He didn't love, and he didn't want to be number two in the shop, and I guess that's all that was available to him in any event. He left. He wrote a scathing piece in Politico, which is not exactly where right-wingers run. Don Jr. disavowed.
Sorry. You do realize that he would have done it at the Wall Street Journal, which is run by Rupert Murdoch, but they're already full up with op-eds saying that Trump and his team don't know what the fuck they're doing. So, they're over quota this week, you weirdo.
And said he's not part of our movement. Don't believe this guy. And then the other three, at least one of them sat down with Tucker Carlson and said, this isn't about my alleged leaking, which I didn't do. This is about my position on Iran and being more dovish. The other two haven't really...
Which is fucking bonkers, and we'll get to in a minute. And thanks to yourself for pulling that for me, because...
out, I think, other than to deny that they're leakers. And now the narrative is building everywhere because there's not a strong MAGA media. Online in the digital lane, you've got MAGA supporters, but there's not a publication like the Journal or the Post or the Times. Mm-hmm.
It's almost like they're incapable of actually forming a lasting organization before they start chewing each other to pieces. Hey, maybe it's the kind of bullshit you're seeing at the Pentagon that keeps them from being able to do that. Maybe it's the kind of thing you see at the Trump organization where he throws fucking Alan Weisselberg and Michael Cohen under the fucking bus, and that's why they can't have lasting establishments, because that's why they hate the establishment, because they can't establish anything.
Pro-Trump, where you can kind of go to hear the MAGA defense. So you've got...
Wait a minute. What the fuck is your job, lady? Hear the MAGA defense? You are the MAGA defense. what's the complaint here? This is awesome. What's the complaint here? What's Megyn Kelly's problem right here? Well, it's clearly that she can't figure out a way to spin this, and she's been trolling around the internet looking for somebody else to help her spin it, and they don't exist. Holy shit. So, hold on. I'm going to do, okay, there we go. Man.
Journal ripping on him. This morning I listened to this podcast. Sometimes I listen to Potomac Watch, which is the Journal editorial board people.
Right. Yeah, it's Paul.
Ripped him to shreds, right? Chaos. And it's just really too much chaos, so he has to go, which to me seems like, well, you can't fire somebody because of chaos.
Yes, you fucking can. Here's a good, God damn it. Let me say, here's an example. Here's an example of you should fire someone because of chaos. What if they're a surgeon and they're supposed to be doing surgery and they throw the operating room into chaos. They bring a fucking Wolverine in there. They're not wearing any pants. They're blazing rails of crack off of nurses' shoulders. They've decided today's the day I'm going to throw up knife fighting. I'm going to take up knife fighting and knife throwing as a skill and a hobby. Yes, you could fire them for that. How about a traffic cop? A simple traffic cop who's supposed to wave people through, who's just going, fuck it, knock yourself out. You would fire that person for fucking chaos. Chaos is not a remedy, you dizzy asshole. Of course you could fire someone for chaos. Of course that, you know, and especially when, it's going to drive me crazy. Especially when they're supposed to be leading an organization. That's right. An organized system, which is, as far as I know, the fucking opposite of chaos. As a matter of fact, when you don't want chaos, what you do is you establish an organization and a framework by which everything functions so shit doesn't turn into chaos. What the fuck is this? Now you can tell why she came up dry looking for some way to support this dickhead and this clusterfuck that is happening at the DOD.
The chaos is real, and what caused the chaos, and then determine whether that's on him, right?
No. It's not. If he didn't cause the chaos, he's not fixing the chaos. Therefore, if he's in charge of the organization and he can't fix chaos when it happens, he's a fuck up and he should go. What? How do you... this? What? Why is it... How does this... Is this what I sounded like to them when I was going, there is no Hunter Biden laptop, except there never turned out to be one? It doesn't exist. Or Kash Patel would be fucking, like, on a fucking viewing tour of it, like it was a fucking... the Heisman Trophy.
Event. You can see him twisting. So far, Trump is saying that he's standing behind him, but for how long remains a fair question. MBD, your thoughts on it?
Well, I mean, I'll be totally frank. I actually know one of the fired people involved, Dan Caldwell.
Uh-oh.
One who was on Tucker Carlson. I've known him for about 6 or 7 years. I find the idea that he would leak to liberal press absolutely preposterous. And
so he would leak to conservative press. Interesting.
I would stake quite a bet that he did not leak to NBC at all, and certainly that he didn't leak class.
Don't you like the force in their voice right now? Don't you like the kind of like assertion that's in? It's like a master class. I feel like I'm watching Toastmasters instructional videos. Isn't this amazing? How they're just, I'm standing by this fellow because I believe in every word he says. Never has there been a finer gentleman in the history of the DOD. I know the guy. I know the guy, and he seems, for all he's always been really, and that's what our position is.
Information. And I believe him when he says he didn't. There are reports today in Politico. There was a
hold on. You don't get to cite Politico and criticize Politico at the same time. You don't get to do it. There's got to be, at some point, do we have like a buzzer and like a big X that happens on screen? Do I have anything like that, even remotely close to a sound effect like that? I probably would have put it in sample sound effect, like, where would I like, ant or something like that? Why don't I need to build on this, because all I have is the right one because I'm so used to being right. Anyways, maybe a. I'm sorry, that's a terrible answer. You can try again in the next round, MBD, if that is your real name.
Long report saying that there was actually less ideology than meets the eye in this internal knife fight, that in fact it was fueled by jealousy from another Hegseth chief of staff, Joe Casper, who's
just been moved out of that post.
Right. He was the one who supposedly initiated the investigation that led to the firing of those 3 staffers. And then he is now being pushed into a new role. Why? Hasn't been, I think, adequately.
I mean, I can report that he's not the decision maker, however. I can tell you that.
Right. Well, of course, he shouldn't.
This is awesome. Okay. So you get the point. Man, this is like turd polishing 101. They're not even getting, like, you're not going to pick up, if you need to learn how to polish a turd, you're not going to pick up any skills from these folks. They're like, no, this is, it's a turd, and it's only ever going to be a turd. It's going to stay a turd, and I'll hold it for a little while, and I'll pretend it doesn't stink, but I'm not going to try and mold it into a vase. I'm not going to try and shine it so that it looks nicer. It is, Megan, here's your turd. Like, that's the best we're going to get out of these assholes. Okay, now, why... chat room, do we really give a shit about, them polishing turds? Not so much. When we can go straight to the source. So, there's a portion of the Tucker Carlson Caldwell interview that people have been using snippets of. And it's such a silly me. I thought that it would be a major part of the interview itself. I thought it would either be scattered throughout and that the whole interview was about this stuff. And it was, they managed to fill an hour and a half talking about who got fired and why, who's, what they're accused of, what they know. All right, okay. Let me show you something. This is, if you can watch this is Woody himself, ladies and gentlemen.
I like wood.
It's true. You should see the rest of the studio.
Deeper and longer.
So, and he's he's looking doughier than usual. I think he's given up on the brochismo incel ball tanning lifestyle that he was doing for a little while and has just gone back to the carbs. And his goal now is to just make sure that chair doesn't float off into the sky. So, but this is Pete Hegseth's top advisor framed for Pentagon leaks, in quotes. It was really about Iran. So, lead buried. Thanks, Tucker. You know what? I appreciate it. I hate the sound of your fucking voice, and thank God we don't have to listen to you anymore because you just tell it in there. But look how far into this fucking thing, and there's chapters on this shit. There's, like, if you go up to here, this is what would happen if the U.S. went to war with Iran. The real reason the U.S. invaded Iraq. The military power of Iran. The global coalition Iran has formed because of the U.S. Is this evil or stupidity? That's the idea that we're going to invade Iran. And this is the storyline that he's selling is that Caldwell was fired because he's too dovish on Iran, and that's in line with Trump and with how Hegseth used to be, but now they're not, so he's got to be punted. So, it makes no fucking sense. But they build up this whole case that there are a bunch of people across the aisle. Apparently, Democrats want to attack Iran as much as everybody else. It's just everybody wants to do it. And poor little Dan Caldwell and these 4 other dickheads were trying to talk Pete Hegseth out of being like zapped with a Jewish space laser and convinced that we have to attack Iran so that he would tell Trump, and they wouldn't do it, or would force him to do it or some shit. It's hard to work out. But they yammer on about this shit for quite some time before they get to the actual story of the firings. And here we go.
You feel it, and it I'm not involved at all. I'm just watching, but it seems like the fastest way to derail the whole project, the Trump administration and the United States of America, is a war with Iran. And that's why I've just been watching it as carefully as I can, because
also, what do you mean watching it as carefully as you can? Can I just, I know that I'm nitpicking at this point, but can I just say that, like, Tucker Carlson has a horrible habit of just making up self-important phrases and activities for himself. I've been paying as much attention to it carefully as I can, because if I'm not careful, I'll stumble into the room and start throwing things because I'm so outraged or whatever. Like, what do you mean careful as you can? You're reading it on Twitter, fuckwad. It's so dumb.
Like, again, if you hated Donald Trump and you hated what the administration is doing on immigration, trade, anti-wokeness, whatever, and you wanted to stop it, the first thing you would do is
bring up the Epstein files and make sure that those come out, and do everything you can to get the Epstein files out, because it would turn his base on him, and they'd finally realize that that Epstein had no better friend in his entire life than Donald Trump, and their friendship was the closest friendship that Trump had had since Roy Cohn, another man who fucked boys, who fucked children specifically. And so you could derail a lot of that shit that way. I would think maybe that's why Pam Bondi isn't, maybe that's why Kash Patel isn't helping or facilitate that, because they both know. But that probably wouldn't work. You're probably right. Probably wouldn't work. Yeah.
Pressure to have the U.S. military engage in a war with Iran. I mean, that's my perspective on it anyway.
Okay, first of all, you're a dipshit. The idea that the DOD is wagging the dog themselves just so they can derail Trump's mission at the border or something is fucking bizarre. You could argue trashing the world economy, said that in there, Robert. Yeah. So you could argue that there might be like super billionaires who are like, this motherfucker's going to destroy the economy of the world if we don't stop him, and that's why you would do it. But it wouldn't be coming from inside the fucking Pentagon.
That, and also continuing to do what we've been doing previously in Russia, Ukraine.
For sure.
Oh, yeah, totally. Russia, Ukraine. Yeah, just continuing that will stop Trump from doing all the things he desperately wants to do with Trende Aragua.
But I don't know why. Well, I'm going to ask you all about this, but it feels like Witkoff is helping a lot there. God bless.
By the way, earlier in the interview, Caldwell said Witkoff was doing a great job and stuff. So this is a callback to that, as if he had that thought himself. Trump does this a lot of times. So a reporter will say something to him, and he'll go, I just heard that this. And you're like, yeah, motherfucker, you heard it from me.
I mean, I've already said he's a godsend.
God bless.
Right, earlier in the interview.
Witkoff, I couldn't agree more. As a man and as an instrument of peace. And a figure now out of history. Okay.
Yes, Steve Witkoff, a figure now out of history. The man who helped establish a ceasefire in Israel and Gaza that the Biden administration had already made happen, and then it fell apart and nobody's bothered to even try to jumpstart it on their part ever again. Also, that's failed miserably when it comes to Russia and Ukraine, even when they're offering horrible, horrible concessions to Russia.
You did make, just from an outsider's perspective, one maybe career mistake by giving on-the-record interviews before you went in, describing your foreign policy views, which I think are fully within the mainstream of the world and the U.S., but out of the mainstream among, warmongers.
Yeah, because that's basically how you divide the world up. You know what I mean? It's like the new version of the 1%. There's like 1% warmongers, and 99% are like, look, I don't care if Russia is raping, murdering people in Bucha. The noise bothers my ears.
Washington. So, like, there were people knew that you weren't fully on board with the regime change program. Is that fair to say?
What regime change program? This is, by the way, this is all based on the mythical idea of Trump wanting to and not wanting to attack Iran at the same time.
I was very open about it. I was very on the record about it. And most of the time when I was saying that we shouldn't do this, it was actually in support of, you know, the president's stated preferences. Like, the president clearly doesn't want this.
Well, he doesn't actually clearly want anything. He vacillates all over the fucking place, and he has flip-flopped repeatedly. He threatened Iran directly in a letter, gave them a deadline, and that deadline is rapidly approaching. And
First term, there were people in his administration that wanted it. He clearly didn't want it. And
why would you say that? What makes you think he clearly didn't want it? Since he scuttled the Iran deal that we had, and he was ratcheting up pressure and has continued to ratchet up pressure, and in his engagement with Israel has expanded the idea that they will do the attack and we will have their back in a matter of weeks.
it was supporting people who didn't want the war. And so I was essentially...
But Donald Trump has said, and now his actions make perfectly clear, he would strongly prefer a diplomatic solution.
His actions include a red line that had a date on it. That's not an action that clearly says you prefer diplomatic. And by the way, you can prioritize a diplomatic solution and still go to war by setting the deadline too close or the standard too high, dipshit.
Correct. I don't want to speak for the president, but it's fairly obvious that that's what he wants.
It's actually pretty easy, actually. You can speak for Trump all you want. Say anything on either side of an issue, and eventually you'll be in agreement with him or in disagreement.
He said it. I mean, He said it again, and he ran on it. So it's not a crazy...
Yeah, he also ran on getting us out of Afghanistan and never did.
...position. And now things are getting so bonkers in this country that say...
Yeah, it's so bonkers. Yeah, it is so bonkers. Like somebody is obviously controlling him and making him bomb the Houthis and send troops to fucking Panama and talk about invading the Panama Canal, even though we already have we're at peace with them. We never have been at war with them.
That makes you a bigot or something, a Nazi. It's like...
No. You make you those things. Just occasionally you say things that make it obvious to everyone around you. You do realize that, like, saying bigoted things aren't what make you a bigot. You're a bigot, and then you say those things. People can say those things if they were repeating them or from someone else or quoting someone. The actual words don't make you the bigot. It's the activity inside your brain and soul that makes you come to the conclusions whether you say them or not. There could be, for all practical purposes, a deaf, mute bigot. And nobody knows, but they are.
I'm just going to ignore all that. And I just want to get back to your experience. So I'm just...
Yeah, I would. If I was Tucker, I wouldn't dig too deep. I wouldn't scratch the surface of that too much.
From the outside, and I'm thinking, having spent my life in D.C., I was like, Dan Caldwell's got a target on his back that I don't know if he knows that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. Dealing with the Pentagon and Intel and yeah, he could get killed. But seriously, my biggest concern is that Tucker Carlson doesn't have command of his emotions, and that is given to sort of dinner theater jokerish fits of laughter about the things, but yeah.
And then I read all of a sudden that you're a traitor. You're like marched out of the Pentagon for leaking, right?
Yeah, just dribbling after using the urinal and just not giving it a double tap just to make sure.
And the whispering campaign, the character assassination campaign begins, and here's its outline. I don't know.
Again, not a whisper campaign. Hegseth said it in front of his kids at the Easter egg roll.
You may not even be aware of this.
You may not even be aware of this, but they were saying it in the Easter thing in front of the Easter Bunny. It's just kind of, which is, you know, a terrible thing. And I was thinking about this the other day that, you know, even the Easter Bunny knows. Holy shit. Like this is what happens when you just get lonelier and lonelier and just in more of like an antisocial pocket. If you're just like a dude born with a silver spoon in your ass, and everybody around you is slowly backing away.
Dan Caldwell leaked classified information to liberal media outlets, to the media, to NBC News, for example. So I just want to be totally direct with you. Did you leak classified information against the wishes of your superiors to media outlets?
Okay. I stopped this before when we saw the clip of this, but I want to make this abundantly clear. Listen to the languaging there. Did you leak it to liberal media outlets against the wishes of your superior officers, as if to guarantee him a box out that there might be a situation where Trump or Pete Hegseth wanted this to get out via some channel to the media because they liked how it made them look, or because they wanted to use it as a, to test the waters from a PR standpoint to how things would actually be received by the public at large, those kind of things. That they will leak messages out like that intentionally to get a gauge of public reaction. This question allows him to avoid that entirely. Against the wishes of your superior presumes that you do leak those things with their blessing on occasion.
Absolutely not.
Did you photograph classified material and then text pictures of that material to an NBC News reporter?
Absolutely not. And
okay, and then he says,
I have not spoken to an NBC reporter while at the Pentagon.
Okay, couple of things right there. I mean, just if you were under oath and you were cross-examining, that you'd first go like, well, okay, you didn't text it and you didn't take pictures of classified information and text it. Did you meet with him in person and show it to him? Because while you say you never spoke to one while you were at the Pentagon could mean while you're during your time at the Pentagon, but it could also mean while you're in the building. At the Pentagon can read both ways. It depends on what your definition of is. I did not have sexual relations with that NBC reporter's phone, Miss Lewinsky, right?
Do you know what you've been accused of?
No, I don't. Sitting here right now, myself and Darren Selnick and Colin Carroll, the other two individuals that were escorted out of the Pentagon, initially placed on leave and then fired on Friday, we have not been told as of this recording, one, is there what we were being investigated for? Two,
also not true. They were being that's a flat out lie. They know that they were under investigation for, removed, and then fired in each of those steps because of the mishandling of classified information. They all have lawyers. They all are aware of this. They were all told that that was why after the fact. They have heard it in the press as well. What classified stuff specifically that they are accused of sending out doesn't matter. They are accused of mishandling classified information. That's why they were put on leave, and then that's why they were fired. So what he's saying is a lie. He can say it's not true. He can say, I don't know specifically what piece of information I'm accused of getting, of disseminating. But he knows, of course he fucking knows. Of course he knows.
Is there still an investigation?
Yes, there is. There's an ongoing investigation. You know how I know? Because fucking Pete Hegseth said it in front of his kids at the Easter egg roll. He said it again in front of Kilmeade. And the idea that these dickheads haven't seen the tape of him speaking about this is, it beggars belief.
Was there even a real investigation? Because there's a lot of evidence that there is not a real investigation. But again, sitting here right now, there are a lot of unknowns about this. As a former Secretary of Defense would say, there's a lot of unknown unknowns. There are some things that are pretty clear, but we have no idea what specifically we're being investigated
so
for.
we can know some things just by the details. So here are a couple. Have you been
Right.
polygraphed?
No.
He says, have you been polygraphed? And he says, no.
I've never been hooked up to a polygraph machine since I've been in the Department of Defense.
Okay.
Which really speaks to the lack of security protocols that are going on in the Trump administration.
Have you given up your private communications devices, your private phone, your phone?
No.
To anybody?
No.
Okay. So that raises the obvious question. I'm trying not to use the F word here because the lying is just driving me insane.
I don't think the lying would have to do that. I think it's you could walk from here.
You're being accused of leaking classified information, but the people accusing you would have no way of knowing whether you did that or not because they haven't polygraphed you or taken your devices.
Okay. They don't need your devices if you sent it through internal communications without your private device. Secondly, they can assume it went out because they know that you were the only source, whether they've checked your phone or not. If only 3 people got a look at this document and you're one of them and the other 2 are me and that guy and we both know we didn't do it, you're up. So of course you can tell. And a polygraph is not admissible in court because you can beat a polygraph. You want to know how? You want to know how to beat a polygraph? Because kids, you want to know a little secret about little Hal? In 8th grade science class, we had to do a report, a science report, and it was one of the few A's that I got in middle school because I was not the greatest student, and not because I didn't understand the materials, but because I was a jerk off. I was a fuck around in class most of the time. I did a report on polygraphs and built one. Yet I built a fucking polygraph using stuff that I got from my mom's doctor's office. They had an old EKG machine, and I was like, it would take your pulse. You know, they had a pulse measuring cuff, and I used that, and then I hooked it up to this like little needle that my dad had from his shop or whatever, and so it would go you could just see it. It wasn't that big a deal, but for 8th grade science purposes, it worked. And so I did a report on polygraphs, and one of the things that it was like, is it true? Like, is it a lie detector? Is there such thing as a lie detector? Like, no, a polygraph is not a lie detector because you can lie, you can get away with it. And one of the ways you can do it, quite frankly, is you put a rock in your shoe. Put a rock in your shoe, and anytime they ask you a true question. Or attack is really the way to do it. But like if you don't think you can get away with, hey, you had a tack in your shoe this whole time, but a rock you can probably go, I didn't know that was in there, right? You put a rock in your shoe, and every time they ask you a true question, you like push your toe into the rock, and that little bit of pain will change the readings on the device. And therefore it will give you an inconclusive. It will, and then if you're, by comparison, they ask you your name and your age and you tell them the truth and you hurt yourself with the little rock just barely, it will make the needle go up a bunch. And then when they ask you a question that you're uncomfortable with and you take your toe isn't on the rock, it won't go up as high. So even though it's higher than your normal baseline, it looks like that's more true than your name and your age. Yeah, the tack is, Wes, is a way to do it. But the problem with the tack is if they look in your shoes and they find the tack, you're in trouble. But if you just had a rock in there, you have to find a really pointy rock. And you put it in the center of your shoe. And you either put it near your toe or in the flat of your toe, or flat of your foot in the arch, because it's very sensitive. Okay? So that's how you do it. But the point of my whole report was there is use a Lego, that'll do it, or jacks are great. The point of my whole report was there's no such thing as a lie detector. A polygraph is not a lie detector. It works, but sometimes you have to do it multiple times to get a baseline, and it's easy to beat. That's why it's not admissible in court. Because even when if you fail a lie detector test, you could still be innocent. You could just be horrified. If you ask someone if they killed, they're on trial for killing their kid, and you ask the person who is capable of killing a child, did you kill this child? The needle won't go up because they're a fucking psychopath. But if you ask the parents, did you kill your child? Oh my fucking God. Like, how does your heart not leap in that situation? See what I mean? So, anyways, there are ways that's why they're not admissible. Okay? Just saying. Nobody's guilty. No, people are guilty. I'm just saying that it judges your reaction, not your honesty. And you can definitely tell they are functional. They do work. But they're not definitive, and they can be beaten. Okay. Which is why you don't use it in court, why it's not admissible in court. It just helps you. What it really does is it helps police know if they're on the right track. That's the best it can do. Yeah, a functional sociopath has no problem with a lie detector. They pass them all the fucking time. They're like proud of beating them, right? So yeah. Anyways, voila. Let's go back to this dipshittery. So again, a polygraph, they're great for security in some cases. And in general, they use them at the FBI and other places. They do that, right? Yeah, you are the father, right? But the fact that he hasn't been through one yet is very odd. You know, because they're good for, you know, in general, to kind of compare against a multitude of factors, right? They're one tool in the toolbox. You can't rely on them solely. But if you're doing a background check on somebody and you want to see if they're honest or whatever, and especially the ones they do it like CIA or where they check your fucking iris. Because you're like involuntary contraction of your iris and that kind of stuff, or involuntary dilation of the iris, which is where the Voight concept comes from. You can tell if somebody's panicked or worried by their eye opening and shutting a little bit. It's very small. But anyways, the point being, yeah, you can get a baseline. You can generally tell this, but it's very odd that this asshole has been working there and hasn't had one yet, even before he was accused of something, just as a general order.
Private devices, correct?
I mean, there are.
You can't even make the allegation because there's no conceivable way you can prove that.
Let me just say there's.
Yes, there is. There's a lot of conceivable ways. Like we have a document that was here, and one of 3 people had access to it, and we've checked the other 2 people, and they don't have it, and it's gone. And you are the only person who has access to that physical document. What are you talking about? There's hundreds of ways. I mean, how does this asshole think they busted people before the existence of cell phones? Good Lord. It's so stupid.
So many different things that would prevent me from doing the things that you've laid out. And again, I don't even know if that's what I'm really being investigated for, again, if there's a real investigation, but...
Okay, that turn of phrase is really telling. I don't even know if there's a real investigation. This is the fucking Pentagon. And it's being run by Joe Casper, this investigation, or was. And according to the Secretary of Defense, is ongoing. And the guy who's the subject of it apparently doesn't even have a fucking lawyer in this situation except to sue for wrongful termination. So far, that seems to be the thing, but I don't know if it's him or if it's the other 2 guys. We'll look it up in a second. But what the hell? I don't even know if there's a real investigation. That in and of itself says chaos.
The point is so what I have told some people who have asked me about what's going on is I would repeat something that I heard in the Marine Corps in our work up to Iraq. I believe it was in something called a Combat Hunter course.
In the Combat Hunter course. Sounds fantastic. Sounds like a scene I had to take when dealing with my adopted son on Queer as Folk. Yeah.
It isn't what it sounds like. It's actually about observing things better.
Oh, so you want to observe things better. Yes, observing, sorry, I mispronounced it. Observing things better. I'm not familiar with how you observe things.
And I remember an instructor very clearly saying, when you're in this environment, believe nothing of what you hear and only half of what you say. And I think this.
Hang on. What?
In this environment, believe nothing of what you hear and only half of what you say.
Does that make any does that make any fucking sense? Yeah, it would be C, wouldn't it? Yes. It would be what you see, not what you say. Correct? What? Hold on. Chat room, does anybody C? It's C, right? Believe none of what you hear and only half of what you see. But he remembers it very clearly. Who the fuck are we? How can we even question? I'm so glad this guy worked at the Pentagon. This is so weird.
I think this needs to apply to this situation.
Oh, sure. How would you apply that? How would you apply only believing half of what you say yourself? Actually, you know what? It may be a Freudian slip. I think that's exactly what happened. This asshole just told us exactly what half of what he's saying is bullshit. Half of it is he's being honest or being truthful or semi-truthful or giving unnecessary or worthless details. And then the half of what he's saying is a lie. Good Lord.
Yeah, the problem with it is it's just a very serious allegation.
And that's a very silly quote, which never happened.
That you betrayed your boss and friend, Pete Hegseth, who you've worked with for like over a decade. Mm-hmm. Who you
Right. Yeah, but Pete Hegseth just turned on him. So that whole friend Pete Hegseth thing doesn't really apply. This is a raw nerve, clearly.
The very beginning. I think that's all. I don't want to speak for you, but you're being accused of betraying Hegseth, who's under.
He's awful fucking quiet right now. He's not doing. You know how I have trouble talking to AI sometimes because I do a lot of and acknowledgement because I want the person that I'm speaking with to know that I hear them when they're speaking. Like that. I do that all the time. This guy does that too, and he just stopped. Look at this real quick. This whole like.
And I think in this environment, believe nothing of what you hear and only half of what you say. And I think this needs to apply to this situation.
Yeah, the problem with it is it's just a very serious allegation that you betrayed your boss and friend, Pete Hegseth, who you've worked with for like over a decade, who you supported from the very beginning. I think that's all. I don't want to speak for you, but you're being accused of betraying Hegseth, who's under attack from people who want a war with Iran. Let's just be totally blunt about it.
Yeah, that's right. So the reason Dan Caldwell got the boot is because Dan Caldwell doesn't want us to go to war with Iran, and somebody might talk Hegseth out of it, and it might be Dan Caldwell. So he had to be booted on a trumped-up charge of being a traitor because he might talk him out of a decision that isn't even his and that Trump is apparently already for. What the fuck? God damn, this is just like, and this whole like, I mean, Tucker's been selling this cabal bullshit for a long time. World Economic Forum, the fucking Pentaveret nonsense for a long time. That there's a big worldwide organization running everything behind the scenes. It's like, again, his job right now is dweeb Alex Jones.
And so you're being accused of betraying him, betraying the president, and committing a crime. That's a crime. So this is not just like, hey, Dan Caldwell's got bad taste in neckties. This is like Dan Caldwell's a criminal.
Wow, fuck you, dude. I mean, he does have bad taste in neckties. The necktie he's wearing is atrocious. I mean, that is seriously like the Rotary called. They want their lost and found tie that they've kept there for years in case anybody shows up without one, so they have something to wear tie back.
Yeah, it's just. There's sometimes I think it just hasn't fully set in with me. And
Yeah, I don't think it has either, or you wouldn't have gone on Tucker fucking Carlson's show.
What's going on, and I want to talk about the two other gentlemen that are going through this.
Oh, the other traitors who love and support Pete Hegseth but don't want to go to war with Iran. And the cabal is trying to get Pete Hegseth to take us to war with Iran, even though Trump doesn't want to, but he will order Pete. And if there's someone around Pete that says no, he might turn on him, and they became jealous of their own. You mean those guys?
And what's going on with them in some ways is more infuriating because, as you said, I have a public profile. I took some what shouldn't be.
God, simmer down. You used to be on Fox a lot with Pete Hegseth.
Virtual positions, but are. And
yeah, like, oh my God, is that Dan Caldwell? Holy shit. Honey, get our picture. I've never had a picture with a traitor before. Why aren't you smiling? Jesus.
I was out there, advancing things that a lot of people in the foreign policy establishment didn't want. Doesn't justify what's happening to me, but let's just be honest, that is the nature of the games played in D.C. Darren Selnick and Colin Carroll are patriots. Let me talk about Darren a little bit. Darren's another person that worked with Secretary Hegseth for over a decade. He is somebody who's spent decades working around veterans and military health issues. He served in the first Bush administration at the VA. He served a critical role in the first Trump administration. He was a key player in advancing the VA Mission Act, one of the greatest accomplishments of the first Trump administration, which fundamentally reformed how the VA delivers healthcare. Darren, I think, can...
Bullshit. By the way, this is him taking credit for VA choice under Trump. The Mission Act was the perfunctory moderation of the VA Choice Act that after the initial period went under review, added some stuff, and on. Fuck off. They didn't dream this shit up. The Obama administration did this. Hal Rogers from the great state of Kentucky, a Republican, by the way, drafted that fucking bill in 2014. That's why it's the VA Choice Act of 2014. The Mission Act was a mild update.
Bet every night saying he saved thousands of veterans' lives because of the reforms he helped advance. He's an Air Force veteran. In between his stints in government.
Well, hold on. All he had to do was not stop those advances. Those advances were happening anyways. And I'm not even questioning that the dude fucking cares, but Jesus Christ.
Worked at Concerned Veterans for America with me and Pete, helping develop revolutionary reforms to the VA that in large part were implemented by the first Trump administration.
But yeah, not because of shit you guys did, but because of the VA Choice Act of 2014 signed into law by Barack Obama.
Come back, he left his nice life in Oceanside, California. His wife, stayed behind, and he got,
By the way, side note, at one point my car broke down when I was driving with my friend Matt to San Francisco from L.A., and it broke down in Oceanside, and I had to stay the night waiting for my dad to wire me $200 for a part that they happened to have there because the only thing in Oceanside was a military base, a motel, and a BMW repair shop. And my 320i that had 146,000 miles on it when I got it was approaching somewhere in the order of 200,000 miles. And it's no Toyota, I'll tell you that. And they luckily had they were able to order from a junkyard the part that I needed. Yeah, good times.
Apartment in Arlington, Virginia, and worked sometimes 16, 17-hour days to advance the secretary's agenda. He played a key role in ripping out woke and DEI nonsense from the administration. Darren was a key driver of that.
Yeah, I'm sure we all feel a lot safer that there aren't qualified brown people in roles that unqualified, pasty, incel assholes like yourself can fill.
And
it's so by your description of Darren Selnick, he
yeah.
doesn't sound like he is engaged in the policy fights, or he's some crazed ideologue.
So before I talk about Colin, Colin has not transitioned as far as I know. But I don't actually know what Darren Selnick and Colin Carroll think about Iran.
Wait, you've discussed these policy positions. He talks about earlier how it's a great environment. They all work together and they would shoot ideas and it was really a free, open space and they could talk about stuff. And you really don't fucking know? You don't fucking know what these guys feel about this?
Selnick could be a secret 12er Shia for all I know. Colin Carroll could want to, nuke Iran until the sand glows. Darren was he was deputy chief of staff focused on back-end office operations and personnel and military health policy. Colin Carroll, let me talk about Colin because he's, I think, an incredible individual too. Colin was a Naval Academy graduate. He served as a recon Marine in combat. Then he literally became a rocket scientist, working in tech, working at companies like Anduril, and he was Steve Feinberg.
Anduril.
Chief of staff. Colin's focus was on science, R&E, and budget. He was down and in. And
so he had access to all the kind of things you would worry about, classified documents that would leak out, like like research and engineering inside the Pentagon on military devices and structures, the funding around them. So he would know, let's say for a company like Anduril, a defense contractor, where that money is going to be spent and when. So if he wanted to, say, boost his job bona fides with those guys, he would just leak some of that shit from his office from a down and in shitty budgetary position. He had access to all the kind of information that all defense contractors want. Cool.
These gentlemen were patriots, and they...
What happened to them? Are they dead? They're not still patriots?
None of us deserve to get treated this way, but in some ways angers me more than what's going on with them.
And it's not even clear. I should just say at the outset that the Pentagon DoD is the largest human organization in the world, has more people than any.
Correct.
I think in the history of the world. And there's a lot at stake.
Also, what? I mean, the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, just like body for body, is ginormous. The PLA is, by human standards, ginormous.
The future of the world is.
Thanks, Groove Dragon, by the way, for getting the thumbs up. Everybody, give a thumbs up to the show. Wherever you're watching from, give me a thumbs up, even if it's just an emoji.
It's DoD, they have nuclear weapons. And so the pressure exerted on that agency from outside, but also the fighting within it, make it like one of the most complicated and treacherous work environments ever created. Is that fair?
Yeah. And that's why you wouldn't want a fucking drunk in charge. Maybe a dude who couldn't manage to not fuck around on 2 wives in a row shouldn't be running the most stressful, gigantic military organization the universe has ever seen by bipedal life forms.
That is fair. And I will say the one thing we had in common, there's a couple things we have in common, was we were threatening a lot of established interests in our own.
Oh, get the fuck out of here. Yeah. Everybody they were jealous. Shit. Oh, look at you guys. Thanks for the thumbs up. Look at that. The hell? What? Like this, this sounds very, this is exactly what Tucker wants to hear. That's what this is. This is exactly what Tucker wants to hear.
Separate ways. And we had people who had personal vendettas against us.
Yes,
I think they weaponized.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. That, of course, because you don't want to just randomly bomb Iran. So there are people in there with great power who want to randomly bomb Iran who haven't yet, even when you weren't there, but, they just knew you were coming, so...
The investigation against us, I think that's part of what's going on here. But look, Colin, and let me just say, Steve Feinberg, I didn't know him before this. I have a lot of respect for him.
I do too.
I think he's going to be a fantastic deputy secretary. Steve Feinberg and Colin were going to shake up how acquisitions are done.
Yeah, apparently not anymore. Why is that? Is Steve, maybe they were shaking it up too much because they were in bed with defense contractors, and what we're really talking about, the mishandling of classified documents, has nothing to do with shit leaked to a newspaper or to a fucking liberal reporter from NBC, but these assholes leaking classified material about military hardware to their buddies at competing defense contractors. Maybe that would be it.
The budgeting is done, how we do science and research. And Colin's got one speed, and that's go. And
yeah, that's terrible. I'm just saying. That's ridiculous. That means you would be completely inconsiderate of all other elements of the circumstance. You'd be all gas and no brakes, and that's a recipe for careening off a fucking cliff. You know who had one speed and it was go? Thelma and Louise.
He wasn't afraid to challenge people when they're acting stupid and wanted to keep doing the same thing. Darren's the same way.
Oh, so he called Hegseth stupid and got fired. I see. Okay, this is starting to make sense. Okay. I mean, I don't think he should have been fired for that. I think he probably should get a medal, but...
Upset a lot of the people that want to keep using the military to be a giant social science experiment.
Right.
So
Yeah, it's all these black people and women and stuff like that. He wanted to stop that, and he was alone in that because the president hadn't written a directive and the secretary wasn't all in on it. It's like, who's trying to why would they, if you're trying to stop the anti-DEI shit that was going on, why would stopping that guy do it? Is that a threat to warn Hegseth and Trump?
And of course, I have some views about the role of America in the world that, as we've discussed, are a little controversial. All of us in our own ways threatened really established interests.
Your views are only controversial in Washington, D.C. Let me tell you that as a matter.
No, they aren't. No. I don't live in D.C., and I would debate you on all of it. I think you're full of shit. He's an isolationist. That's controversial. That would cause, and again, debatable, arguable, controversial. It's always be on the side of the most aggressive white person is really what he's talking about. Always support the biggest, most violent move by the white person in the fight, no matter whether they're good or bad. And that includes Russia and Ukraine. That includes Wagner in Africa. That includes us in the the Middle East should just be allowed to churn itself to paste, and then we'll move in and take stuff when they're too weak to do anything about it. That's what this guy is for. It's the idea that this guy has controversial viewpoints because he thinks we should be non-interventionist in battles that have nothing to do with us or something, which is what they sell all the time, is horseshit. That's the generalized thought. What he means is he wants to use that as a way to spackle over the holes in his moral code.
Correct.
They are not controversial anywhere else in this country or the world.
We threaten.
Also, by the way, every thought will find controversy in the world. There's 8 fucking billion people, dum-dum. Sit down in Yemen, on the right longitude or the right latitude, and see if you won't get an argument across the table for America being involved or not involved. Or anybody being involved and not involved. Fucking hell.
Established interests inside the building and outside the building.
So I just want to restate, because this is why you're here, because you got bounced out and you're being accused of betraying
by Pete Hegseth,
your boss, your president, your nation.
By Pete Hegseth. And Trump, by the way. Trump has called them disgruntled employees and leakers, just like Pete Hegseth has. We know their names, so it's not like they went under the radar and they're talking about somebody else. We know exactly who these fucking guys are, and Hegseth and Trump knows that we all know who these people are while they're talking about them.
You have, I don't want to speak for you, not leaked classified information to the news. You've never undergone a polygraph exam, and you've never handed over your personal phone. Are all those statements true?
That is all 100% correct. And let me just say, actually, my first instinct when they came and escorted me out of my office was I actually thought that they were going to try and get me to testify against the secretary, because the secretary over the whole signal.
Boy, that must have been a fucking surprise. How'd you take it when you found out that wasn't how it worked out? That's for real. Can you, take him at his word. Take him at his word. They were like, look, you guys aren't going to make me shit on Pete Hegseth. And you're like, shit on Pete Hegseth? He's the one who's having you fired, you dumbass. Like, what was it? My next question would be, what was the feeling that came when you thought that, of course, and then as soon as you found out that actually Pete Hegseth was like, dump that fucking guy, he's a traitorous asshole, and he's obviously the leaker, even though Hegseth was the guy, the only person we know of that has directly leaked attack plans. How'd you feel about that?
Stuff is under an inspector general investigation. That was my first instinct.
Well, and we now know, I think, based on what you've said before and what you're saying now, that your instincts in general are fucked. Yeah, you have terrible instincts. Your instincts will tell you that you should believe everything you hear and twice what you see.
This
or
was
say.
part of it.
So there was an investigation into leaking. I think the president, like all presidents, doesn't want leaking. I mean, no,
of course not.
He wants leaking, right? If you're in charge, you don't want your employees to be leaking against you. So there was this leak investigation that was on,
or was there,
for weeks, right? What were you? Was your access to classified information limited during that time?
Not at all. In fact, the day I was escorted out of the building, I went into, I won't get specific, the highest
a spiraling depression,
high-level intelligence briefings, and up until the minute I was pulled out of my office, I was on highly classified systems doing my work.
So you were looking at highly classified information.
Yes, he worked in the Pentagon at a high level, and then he was fired, and they walked him out of the building. Yes, the whole fucking place is classified. That's why Pete Hegseth's full of shit, dum-dum. Oh my God. That's exactly why Pete Hegseth is full of shit, because everything they talk about in there is highly classified. That's why the attack plans that he put in the fucking signal chat were highly classified. That's what makes them top secret. Of course, it's the fucking building. God damn.
Up until the moment they brought you outside.
Yeah, because it's the Pentagon. That's why he wasn't already outside looking at his regular work materials on a terminal with his back to the park. That's why it's a building. That's why it's the fucking Pentagon. That's why there are armed guards outside. Yes, everything that happens in there is classified. This is so bizarre. And the way he's talking about it has this, it's always, Tucker always has that fucking, forehead, butt crease, just asking questions, right? I can't, this is hard to understand. It's so infuriatingly stupid and everything. If you oversimplify everything, it certainly makes it easier to vilify anyone involved if you just pretend you don't have, basic comprehension and that you're overwhelmed by a sense of violent naivete. God damn. Yes, that's why they couldn't let him go back to his fucking desk. Oh God. It's amazing. This gets better all the time. Holy shit.
And separated on the basis of the claim that you were leaking classified information.
I was doing my job. Part of my job entailed looking at intelligence, helping make recommendations to the secretary.
Yeah, right. So, yes, you wouldn't be investigated for or have any concern about you leaking classified information if you didn't have access to classified information in the first place. What? Okay.
Giving my thoughts, working with the policy team, and most of our work was done on classified systems.
The reason I'm pressing,
because you're in the Pentagon. This is, yeah. Catfem, this hurts my very brain. I know. This is just getting dumber as it goes on.
that doesn't make any sense.
None of this interview makes any sense. You're both so fucking is there an epidural for reasoning? When you sit down for an interview with Tucker Carlson, do these guys get like an injection in their asshole that shuts off their ability to just understand or comprehend normal reasoning and just fills them with like abject bigotry and paranoia?
Any sense to me?
Right. So if you're, I mean, because just to be clear, you don't want people leaking classified information from the Pentagon.
Let me be clear. That is a problem at the Department of Defense. There has been things that have been shared with the
What?
media, particularly I would say
When?
the Panama stuff that is unacceptable. And
I've been the recipient of classified information for decades, including from the Pentagon, in the form of leak.
Yeah, but not classified, top secret. And again, the Department of State, the Secretary of State's travel calendar is technically classified. Simmer the fuck down, deep throat. I mean, don't get me wrong. Tucker would make a hilarious deep throat in the South Park version of All the King's,
Deeper and longer.
Yeah,
I like wood.
you know what I mean. He'd be great.
Journalist who's doing his job has been. So, like, there's a lot of leaking of classified information, I can tell you.
but let's be honest. Everyone knows where
Why start now?
it's coming from. It's from the career staff who don't look like what the president and the secretary and vice president want to do.
They don't look like what the president and the secretary. I mean, he meant to say don't like what the president wants to do, but would that be true of both? Then the career staff, the deep state.
There's people on the
You do realize you're fired for doing stuff you're accusing people who don't exist do.
staff that I come to respect, but a lot of them are incredibly hostile to the secretary, to the president, and the vice president's worldview. It's pretty obvious that that's where most of the leaks are coming from. There's a less obvious place. I just want to point something out.
The less obvious place. Where would that be? Oh, right. You. Yeah.
As we sit here today, Tucker, and this could change by the time this is aired, but as we sit here today, Susan Rice, Michelle Flournoy, Eric Edelman are still in good standing with the Department of Defense.
Right. And they haven't been perp walked out of the building because they haven't leaked anything.
That is correct. They are still...
Susan Rice? Like
Susan
the Obama
Rice-
Susan Rice?
Yes. Susan Rice is still on the Defense Policy Board.
Right now?
As we sit here today, by the time this is released, that might change.
Yeah, but that's not a fucking... They don't sit in the Pentagon and like the fucking judges on Krypton. She's on the board and they call them in if there's a particular thing that they dealt with during their time, they bring them in and go, hey, who are you talking with? What was this like? They always have those people so they can pull them back in. But they don't fucking sit at a round table like overruling what the president wants to do.
But as we sit here today, she's...
Oh, we hit over 1,000 likes on YouTube. Excellent. I bet we could get more. I bet you do know that helps us in the algorithm, right?
the Defense Policy Board. Now, that doesn't mean she can go in the building and get access to whatever she wants. But
well, then why should we give a fuck? It's an advisory board. So what you're saying is you brought her up for no fucking reason at all, and she can't leak anything because she's not in there and getting access to stuff. And the stuff that you're talking about that was leaked only happened while you were there, and she was never anywhere near the building when they were talking about it, so she wouldn't have had the access to it or known about it when it was leaked in the first place. So why are you bringing her up other than to cover your ass and she's brown?
that she works with DoD employees, she can interact with them, and has the credential and the affiliation with the Department of Defense.
But so Susan Rice has no relevant experience for a job like that at all. She's a political hack.
Correct.
Yet she held that position and has relevant knowledge about it because of her experience there.
As we sit here in April of 2025, about 100 days into the president's first term, she and a bunch of other people who are incredibly hostile to the president and his worldview remain on the Defense Policy Board.
You're sure?
You can go on the website and check it.
Right, but the Defense Policy Board that doesn't have anything to do with whether or not we go to war someplace. unless he wants their advice. What are you talking about? Who cares?
And I checked with Colin and Darren, and they confirmed that as well too.
Sorry, you checked the website and her name is on there, and you checked with the other two guys that were fired, and they're like, "Yep, she totally is." And
Well, that's shocking.
it is. It's very shocking. I'm shocked. I feel shocked.
And again, I would just say, if you want to look where leaks are maybe coming from, that would be a place to start.
And so you think Pete Hegseth preferred to keep Susan Rice on that board rather than fire you for a trumped up car? Like,
So, but just back to your story, and I won't linger on it. Every time I mention this, your jaw tightens. I can feel your frustration. And I should just say
I'm
point
frustrated
blank.
you.
Well, I'm completely convinced that this is nonsense and sinister nonsense.
I agree. I think Sinister, I said this before, but I think Sinister Nonsense is a great book title when talking about Pete Hegseth's time at the Pentagon.
But if you were the subject of an investigation, a leak investigation, if the investigators had determined that you were leaking classified information to the news media, you probably wouldn't have continued to receive access to classified information, correct?
Correct.
Right. That's why they walked him out of the building. Yes. That's why he was not allowed to go back to his desk where the classified information was. That's exactly what that says. That's exactly what I mean.
I probably would be sitting here today.
You'd be in jail, dude. You would have been handcuffed, correct?
If I had leaked, well, again, I just want to be clear here. I still don't know if the term they used is, and they.
He's about to tell you that he knew this whole time what he's being investigated for and that the investigation is ongoing. What do you think? What do you think he's about to say? Like mishandling of classified documents or unauthorized handling? What do you think? He's about to admit that he's known this whole time, and when he said earlier he doesn't even know what he's being investigated for and whether it's ongoing, he's about to lie again. He's about to tell you that earlier shit was a lie.
See the DOD using is unauthorized release of information.
Fuck you. Unauthorized release of information, which is also a lie because it's unauthorized handling of classified information. Unauthorized release of information? I'm sorry. If you give somebody directions, while they're on the corner and you work for the Pentagon, you have to get authorization to release that information? You drop the word classified on purpose.
If I think there's a lot of rumors and people are exploiting this that we can talk about. If I actually did some of the things that anonymous people on the internet and in the Pentagon are saying I did.
Anonymous people on the internet and at the Pentagon are saying, okay, I don't care about them. And maybe there are anonymous people. Maybe there are anonymous people on the internet that are saying all kinds of terrible shit about you. I'm just going to go with what the Secretary of Defense and the President have said about you. How about that? Unless you just want to back the fuck up and explain to me what kind of liars they are.
I'd be in handcuffs.
And you're not.
I'm not.
Yep.
I'd be like Reality Winner or Bradley Manning or Edward.
Oh, fuck you. Notice how he's calling Chelsea Manning Bradley. Again, that should explain to you who this asshole is.
Or one of those people.
It's very obvious to me, having far fewer details than you have.
That's not. I don't even think that's possible. I think there is a bottom on ignorance.
One of the people who is perceived to be standing in the way of
somebody. By the way, somebody just called him transphobic. He's not transphobic. He's a bigot. He doesn't have an abject psychological disorder that makes him irrationally afraid of trans people. He's a bigot. He's not transphobic. Stop giving them an out. It drives me fucking crazy. I know, that's a normalization phrase. It's not a phobia. He's hateful and he's a prick. He doesn't have an illness. He's a bigot. And I know you didn't mean anything by that, but you know how I feel about this. Like we have to reassert that these people don't. I'm not going to be ableist by bagging on somebody who has arachnophobia or a fear of heights. He's a bigot.
Change war in Iran, and that was kind of your crime. That seems obvious.
It's gibberish, bullshit. Why the fuck would Dan Caldwell, of all people, his opinion on whether we should attack Iran or not be worth the scandal of kicking him to the fucking curb? Was he going to stop Pete Hegseth from carrying out Trump's orders if Trump decided to do it? Was he on the team with Pete Hegseth? You don't think the other people around him are anti-abstract attack on Iran? What are you talking about? Where? I don't get it. I don't know why Dan Caldwell fucking matters in the decision circle. He's not one of the joint goddamn chiefs. He's a rando in the fucking office. He looked at classified information all the time by his own admission, and he gave advice amongst a bunch of other people. And his advice was, we shouldn't bomb Iran. And apparently, in Hegseth's Pentagon and in Trump's Pentagon, that's enough to get you fired. How does any of this make sense? This whole, this bullshit self-evident storyline that Tucker keeps throwing out, well, it's obvious that, you were dangerous. What? He's not a fucking hypnotist. If he was right about it, other people will be right about it. And Pete Hegseth would talk to him on the fucking phone once he got kicked out and still not do it. It's bullshit. If Trump attacks Iran, or Pete Hegseth orders an attack on Iran, or orders support for Israel attacking Iran, it will be because he's following the orders of Trump, who said it. Dan Caldwell didn't get a chance to talk Trump out of shit because he was in contact with Pete Hegseth. Pete Hegseth didn't go to Dan Caldwell for his final answer on whether they should attack something. Yeah, he's totally Carter Page. It's just like a self-involved, narcissistic, incel dickhead who was a bro hire of Pete Hegseth's and was expected to take one for the team because Pete Hegseth is a fuck up and Trump doesn't want to fire him, so they got to fire other people close by. It's so weird.
I think it's complicated. There's other layers to this, but based on what has been happening since then, I think that is a factor.
Jesus. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Nobody is saying we got to get rid of this Caldwell guy. He's whispering in Pete Hegseth's ear. He's never going to let us carry out a global attack that we've been planning for decades on Iran, but magically haven't done yet. What the... in... the ego involved in this is extraordinary. And you're talking to... You're listening to somebody who has trust me, an enormous ego. And you have to be a stand-up. You just have to. And so this, petty narcissism from guys like this is... It would be... It's just disappointing from an ego standpoint.
And it is being weaponized against me, I think that they want to also go after, and I think that I can't say this with certainty, but just speculating.
Mm-hmm. You're bullshitting. Just say bullshitting.
Had somebody in the White House not said, okay, we need to put a stop to this, there probably been more people treated the same way that Colin, Darren Selnick, and myself were treated.
So the fact...
So Trump decided enough scapegoats who had nothing to do with it have been fired. So some magical unknown career politician or deep state operative decided to whisper in Trump's ear and go, "Enough, sir. Let the rest of them live for the time being. You will enact your wrath upon them later."
This way to knock someone out of commission and eliminate his influence, and in your case, his job, is to tell the person that he works for that that person's betraying you.
Yes. And if that person that they're telling, like Pete Hegseth, is a dipshit with no loyalty whatsoever, he'll just drop you in a week because of some of his own fuck-ups? Who is this person? Who is this fucking Hegseth whisperer?
Person's betraying you.
And Pete Hegseth goes, oh no. We should probably get rid of, no, I don't like him anymore. I want to get rid of him. Get rid of him. That's all it takes. That's all it fucking takes. Again, yet another reason why Pete Hegseth shouldn't be in charge of fucking anything. If he's that fucking dough-headed, that's all it fucking took? These guys are, by Tucker's own admission, completely innocent and totally in line with the president's strategies or his doctrine. And yet also, those are the betrayers, sir. Oh no. I'm gonna go tell Trump, these guys, I thought they were my friends. What the hell? Yeah, again, Pete Hegseth is terrible at this. He's a sap. He's a dough-headed dipshit. If he can turn on his friends that quickly, why would you trust him to stay a patriot? That's all it took? A fucking week of bad press, and he's like, oh, yeah, you know what? Broom, those guys I've been friends with for a fucking decade. You know, the guys that, made sure that the vets were treated nicely, and I was very proud to steal money from their organization? Fuck them first. Oh, Jesus.
I mean, it sounds to me, again, I'm keep putting words in your mouth, but it sounds to me like you have felt, it sounds like you still feel that your views are aligned with those of the president.
100%. I wouldn't have joined this administration if I didn't feel that way.
Well, sure you would. I mean, if you were a mole or you were subversive or you were trying to undermine what the president wanted to do, whether it was what he was saying publicly or not, of course. Can we not just be, we don't have to be naive and stupid about this. If you wanted to be a spy, you would say what you're saying. We don't have to pretend that doesn't exist. You could be full of shit. You would, of course you would join this if you wanted to, I don't know, attack from within, right? That's a possibility. And if you don't think it's a possibility, the fuck are you doing advising on war plans if you can't understand that there can be an attack from within?
I don't speak for the president, but here's the other thing too. I had this attitude in the Pentagon, and maybe this was, I still had this attitude that I was still, in the Marine Corps. It's like, hey, when a decision is made, when we've decided on a course of action that we're going to do this, we're going to make sure it's executed properly.
Yes.
And you still.
Yes, we are. We're gonna make sure that if we want an all wood building with wooden shelves and wooden books and a wooden frame.
I like wood.
We're gonna put wood everywhere that we can fit it. Really.
Deeper and longer.
We're just gonna as much wood as we can. Sure, and then we'll do that. Yeah, and of course you would.
Concerns, if you see something happening, then you can do that. But if you are so repulsed by what's happening, then you should resign.
So I think what you're saying is that you.
Oh, you mean like Olyat did? So what you're saying is Olyat, his quitting and doing the op-ed in Politico was the right way to go.
You were serving your bosses, even when you personally disagreed.
Correct.
As you did in the U.S. Marine Corps.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, but he's an advisory position. He doesn't carry out stuff. So how do you follow orders as an advisor other than find me a attack plan that will kill these people? I don't think we should kill those people. All right, well, find me an attack plan that kills them anyways. Well, that's not my job. I'm to advise you that I don't think it's a good idea. You talk to those guys over there with the fucking brass on their chest, and they'll tell you how to do it.
How does, I don't even want to ask you, but I'm going to, how does this make you, I mean, you must feel like you're living.
Oh my God, you must feel like you like wood.
I like wood.
You got to feel it. Like you walk into your home every day, and like, how do you react to any of these things? You're looking in the mirror, and you're like,
Oh, hello there.
A nightmare.
yeah, it is a nightmare. It's a nightmare, and I feel so hurt. I feel so hurt. I don't know. I was trying to pee with my friend. And
I said earlier, sometimes I feel like it hasn't fully set in because it does feel like a dream. It's like, what am I?
Or you're a sociopath and you were hired to be a sociopath, and that's why.
Wake up at 04:30 and just get ready for work, and walk my dog, drop her off at doggy daycare, and then roll into the river entrance back into the Pentagon.
Yeah, it's what I call the macho mornings. Get up, walk my dog. So the kids live with your wife, your ex-wife then. So you don't get up and feed your kids and send them off to school and then go. It's just you walk your dog. You have children. Where are they in this? What happened to them? I'm sorry. I mean, look, relationships break up, and that's fine or whatever. Maybe they do go, but I don't know, some kind of contact. I don't know. It seems a bit. Didn't bring that up.
I feel like on some level that's happening, and it, I feel like it hasn't fully hit me, but it's been awful. I mean, the impact on my family, I'll just say,
my dog, the people at doggy daycare.
I wanted to try and hide this from my mom as long as possible.
Because I live with her, and she's always going, "What's all that noise in the basement? You don't have those fellas over drinking again. Why is Pete Hegseth passed out on my couch again?" It's been embarrassing.
I was worried. She's a worrier. I love her to death. She's a saint. I didn't want.
She let me move in after the recent uncomfortableness with my wife and the other person at work I won't bring up.
Then an hour later, somebody leaked to Reuters describing exactly what had happened to me. And then 6 hours later, they pulled the same stunt with Darren, and then 12 hours later, they pulled the same stunt with Colin.
So they told the truth. And what was the most upsetting? That your mother was more upset about what happened to them, and that she hoped you'd get a real job, or?
And so, it's been devastating, and it's caused a lot of stress to my family. Just one thing I want to say is,
and your dog, don't forget. I mean, because it's very confused why you don't drop it off at doggy daycare anymore, and you're just kind of hanging around.
I've been a friend and supporter of Pete Hegseth for a long time, and I'm just personally devastated by this. It's just awful and whatnot.
Well, it's got to be, hey, I've been there. I've been through betrayal. Somebody you thought was a friend turned out to be a raging piece of shit, and you bent over backwards. You tried to help them everywhere you could, and they left you hanging. It's a rough one. It's a rough one to go through. I suppose it's even worse when they mock you on the lawn of the White House during an Easter egg hunt.
And but at the end of the day,
you have evening. It's true. I feel like it's a broken clock moment he's having. At the end of the day, there comes evening.
Putting all this aside, Pete Hegseth needs to be a successful Secretary of Defense. And the entire Department of Defense.
Maybe he needs to successfully quit.
Cannot continue to be consumed by chaos. They have a great team there. They have.
Do they though? No, I'm gonna call bullshit on that as well. Yeah, no, I don't buy it.
Great deputy secretary. We just talked about Steve Feinberg. They have I think one of the leading lights of the America First foreign policy movement in Bridge Colby, a dear friend of mine, running the policy shop now, effectively the Pentagon's number 3. He has a lot of great mid-level and junior staffers under him.
Yeah, and they're all going to get blamed for this shit, and Pete Hegseth will stay on board because he doesn't give a fuck about you, and he doesn't give a fuck about them, and it's all about the Trump show, and Pete Hegseth sees himself as joined inexorably to Trump at the hip. So you guys will be the scapegoats. You will be tossed overboard. You'll be thrown in front of the bus.
You're going to have some great undersecretaries coming in. These are just world-class people. These are not political hacks. You know, people like Mike Duffy at A&S, people like Emil Michaels and A&S's acquisition and sustainment at research and engineering. Service secretaries, I think, are going to be great. Dan Driscoll, even though he has a secondary job running an agency that shouldn't exist, ATF, I think.
An agency that shouldn't exist. That's right, because he'll never... Dan Caldwell will never forgive them for figuring out who did the Oklahoma City bombing.
He's proven to be a great Army secretary. And look, one of my favorite things, Tucker, is admitting you're wrong about people.
Like Pete Hegseth, like he's a piece of shit. You're finally going to say it. Say it. Say it. Pete Hegseth sucks.
One person I was wrong about was John Phelan. I was skeptical of him being Navy Secretary. And so far, I have to say, him and his team are off to a great start.
Well, he hasn't drummed anybody out of his... he hasn't leaked naval positions to anybody or attack plans on an app.
I think Troy Mink is going to be a fantastic Air Force Secretary. And so there's this fantastic team underneath the Secretary that can enable him to be incredibly successful.
Why? Fish stinks from the head.
He has to move past this. He has to get a solid team around him in the front office. And this isn't a plea.
Sorry, you weren't a part of a solid team?
Hire me back. I candidly just want to move on and go back to doing what I was doing before and being an advocate on the outside. But you know, without Darren and I and others, he needs to get a strong team in there. And there's some great people that I think could do that.
And the chairman of the Joint Chiefs?
Oh, I have to say, this is interesting you bring him up. Chairman Dan Raisin Kane, incredibly impressive. And I actually think, if I'm being honest, one thing that has incited the building against President Trump and the secretary was the selection of him. A lot of people wanted the secretary and the president to go the normal route, including some people in the administration, and pick a combatant commander, you know, a General Kurilla.
Oh, by the way, one of the things that this guy does all the time, and Tucker does it as well, but it's particularly galling, he does it over and over, is that he assigns a thought process to a bunch of other people that there's this vast conspiracy or people act a certain way. He's like his belief that Democrats desperately want to bomb Iran, that we're hawkish on Iran, and that everybody across the board, it's one thing that like, it's kind of bipartisan wanting to bomb Iran, but the Democrats really want to do it. And his reason for believing that is that he must have been kicked to the curb by a Democratic bureaucrat, operative, deep state, somebody, and he couldn't have possibly been fired by Hegseth. So it has to be about his Iran views. So it has to be a secret Democrat who really wants to destroy Iran on behalf of Israel or in conjunction with Israel. And that's why he lost his job. And so he projects this bizarre like depth of like, they all want this or they all think this, which again is a level of paranoia you don't want anywhere near an advisory council to the Secretary of Defense. Like there's a lot of reasons to kick this asshole to the curb. That would be the biggest one, besides the fact that he's either on purpose or accidentally leaking information to the press.
Or an Admiral Paparo. I actually like Admiral Paparo, but they want him to go that route. No, instead, they did something that needed to happen, is they pulled a very accomplished guy out of retirement, somebody who didn't do all the right things and check all the right boxes in his career, but who's incredibly smart, who's incredibly thoughtful about how he approaches problems to be the chairman. And that upset so many career paths. Like if you look at these books where they kind of lay out like how you promote generals, is they have like little maps about where people are going to go. And there's a lot of people that are going to go to this role in the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the vice chairman. They're going to be the chief of staff of the Army. And by elevating Kang, they upset so many career paths. And it's hard to overstate how much of a middle finger that was to a lot of the uniform leadership of the United States military.
Yeah, I don't think it had anything to do with Raising Cain being the dude, because Trump picked him as a namesake. And if your career path has more than a 3-year elbow in it, I think you're going to be just fucking fine. But it wouldn't be enough. The idea, because you have to, let's finish on this, to buy into what Dan Caldwell is saying, who, for the record, is a dipshit, and only outpaced in his dipshittery in that interview by Tucker Carlson himself. But understand the premise of what he's putting forward, and this is something you'll hear from Pete Hegseth and others as well, that generals, military people who have spent their entire lives in service of the country will jockey around in such a way to try and get us into a devastating war in the Middle East with Iran that they know we shouldn't fight, but they want us to do it because they're mad that someone else got a promotion that they didn't get. Just understand what kind of projection you would have to be, the idea, the things you'd have to believe for that to work. Know how promoting outside the order is bad. I agree. That it's not the problem. What I'm saying is what they actually did, or him putting somebody inside there, good or bad, is immaterial. What we're looking at is Dan Caldwell and the people around Pete Hegseth and this and what they believe about other people because of their behavior. Because even he said in that interview, it was an act of petty jealousies were what spurred this on amongst Hegseth's staff and Joe Casper and all that kind of stuff. You'd have to be so pathetic to fight your whole life to be in that position, to be, I want to be chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and if I can't get it, I will drag America into Iraq and Afghanistan on steroids. It's moronic. It makes zero sense. Now, on our way out, I know I'm getting near the end of the show, but on our way out the door, we need this. We need this. You need this. I need this. No one needs this, but everyone needs this. Ladies and gentlemen, Greg Kelly, in a one-man show he is putting on at the men's room at the Civic Theater. Greg Kelly, RFK Jr. is saving America from big food.
I can't believe I missed this.
What, that they used red dye number 40 in the fake blood coming off of Trump's ear? Oh my God, that wasn't even blood. It was a gummy bear.
I have looked at this assassination attempt on President Trump, I think 1,000 times.
Yeah, we know. It's we all fear your Pornhub search results.
I read all the reports. I'm obsessed with this case. What the hell happened?
Well, if only Trump had become president, the Democrats wouldn't be able to hide all the details about it, and it wouldn't still be a mystery.
They almost killed President Trump. They killed that other guy, Corey Comparator, injured 2 other people.
They did? Who's they, motherfucker? The dude who did it is dead.
Just that one individual, that one guy, Crooks, by himself. I don't think too many people are buying that. That is the official storyline.
From Trump.
And they were watching him for 90 minutes prior to the assassination attempt.
No, somebody saw him 90 minutes before, and they were trying to keep an eye out, and he wasn't visible. They didn't have eyes on him for 90 minutes straight. Asshole.
90 minutes. The cops, the Secret Service, they knew about this guy. Well, folks, I just saw something that kind of blew my mind on this whole thing.
Please tell me that you blame the ingredients in Count Chocula for this guy being nuts and trying to shoot at Trump.
And it was staring me in the face the entire time. Now, maybe you...
A fellow bus passenger?
But I did not. I'd like you to take a quick look over here, if you would. Here's President Trump, all right, about to get into the vehicle.
Yeah, it's his massive bald spot. Yeah, we can see that, like almost completely gone. Like once he falls over and the comb over falls apart, like he looks like Vader with his helmet off. Yeah. So that definitely gross. Yeah, oddly pasty. Sure.
He's right there, about to get in. And then there's this guy. He's about to do something very, very strange. And I just noticed it. Well,
what does he do? Eat a giant gummy bear?
Yesterday. So let's take a look, everybody.
About a month ago or so, you said they were going to brief you on what happened, what they know, the investigation. Has that happened? Is there anything you can share with us? And maybe there should be a commission. Maybe there should be something else.
So it has happened, and they don't seem to think there was anything other than abnormal people. And
abnormal people. You mean the two guys that tried to kill you were nuts?
I'll assume that's true.
Yeah, that's what you would do if the Secret Service let their guard down and you almost got killed. I think most of it would just go, let it slide.
Well, all right. Now I'll show you the video.
Yeah, I was promised a video where a guy does something weird, and all I saw was some suck-up talking to Trump while Trump bullshitted right to his face, apparently, because that, I don't know if you know, but the guy, Greg, the guy who was, you just showed the clip, who was interviewing Trump, apparently he thinks there was something more to it, and Trump was like, fuck is wrong with you? It's just crazy people. You're a dipshit. You're stupid. You're weak. You're small. I don't even know why I'm talking to you. I mean, that's how I saw it.
Seems to be open to other theories as to what happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you notice anything?
He was standing close to the door, and the Secret Service agent elbowed him out of the way, and he took 2 steps forward while he was watching that angle, and then he stepped back.
Anything unusual? Well, the whole thing is unusual.
Well, it doesn't usually happen, but that doesn't make it unusual. It's actually protocol. Looks pretty normal.
The slowness, but watch what the guy does with the gun. Once President Trump is in the vehicle, why does he point that weapon right at President Trump?
He's not! He's pointing at the other side of the vehicle, it's stupid. He isn't pointing it at Trump. Really? This is what you fucking look at? Hold on, back the fuck up. He's like over by the edge of the fence. It's the shallowness of the lens, you dummy.
Once President Trump is in the vehicle.
Yeah, he's pointing past it, over that way. More than likely behind the curtain here, or to the inside of it, clearing the other side of the vehicle, making sure that if anybody tries to step in that way, Trump and his entire team are on this side. The vehicle is shut. God damn, he's Greg Kelly.
Why does he point that weapon right at President Trump?
I don't know. He's probably, maybe he's not white, Greg. Maybe that's why. He was like, maybe this is my chance. Holy God.
That's kind of crazy.
Yes, you are kind of crazy. Well, no, I take it back. You're not crazy. You're stupid. That's just stupid. You're a weirdo. That's just stupid. It's everyone, like we're all watching this, and all of us, everyone, including your regular audience, are like, okay, I understand you think there's more to it than this, but you're an idiot.
That is a big thing.
No, it's not.
He seems to be, if you watch it one more time, in radio contact with somebody just before he makes the decision to lower his weapon. And is he aiming? Kind of looks that way to me. Now, it's momentary, but why would he do it? Can I do it?
Because he's clearing the side of the vehicle that's closed to make sure that nobody jumps on or bum rushes it or enters the vehicle as they push Trump into it from this side. Somebody clearly told him to cover that side of the vehicle.
When we zoom in on him, I don't know if he's military. I don't know if he's National Guard.
I'm gonna guess he's military. I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna go out on a limb, just by going by what he's wearing. He might be. Look, he might be a Rotarian. He might. We don't know.
Secret Service, Homeland Security, or what? But if we had a full-fledged commission into this,
I'm pretty sure he's one of the Village People.
Know who that was. You know, people are still studying the Zapruder Commission and the Zapruder film 60, 70 years later. Why are...
Greg, you didn't discover the Zapruder film. He's protecting the president. This is so odd. I'm so glad I'm watching this. This was supposed to be about food additives. I would like to remind everyone that the name of this video is RFK Jr. is saving America from big food. And we are 3 minutes in.
Studying this. Let me know if you've seen that. Let me know if you think that's unusual. I think it's pretty damn weird. I'd like to know why he was pointing. And who knows? Who knows? Everything's on the table regarding...
No, it isn't. No. That's not on the table. First of all, the glass on the beast that they're taking him away from is bulletproof. There's no way somebody dressed in full military flak gear like that with everything is going to be allowed near the president without clearance. And he certainly, if he opened fire with everything that rifle had in it, it wouldn't even be able to hit the president. Why, if it had anything to do with anything, why would he wait until he was inside the bulletproof vehicle? You asshole! Like, this is, all right. You know what? Give it up. I gotta say, Greg, you have outdumbed yourself. I think we're all amazed at this point. Let's see. Do we have? I feel like we need. Where is he? Some sort of. No, that won't work. I need. Everybody, Greg Kelly and his genius theory. No, that's not what I wanted. Don't laugh at Greg. Stop it. Greg is he's a great. Hey, Greg is worried. Okay, don't make fun of Greg. He just thinks that this guy might be an assassin who was late because he was getting dressed. And it's okay. It's a mistake. Anybody quit it. Greg is serious about this, you guys. Okay, thank you. All right, Jesus Christ.
Case and the West Palm Beach case. All right, next, please. Petroleum synthetic food dyes. Sounds yummy, doesn't it? It's a chemical that's in our food to make it look a certain way. This does not go with food, but it's apparently in hundreds, if not thousands, of products.
This is a wheat thresher. This is a harvester. Why? I don't know if you know this, but this is the natural color of wheat.
Consume.
What is this guy doing? And this, see if this is weird. This tractor is like turning towards the wheat. Has anybody looked into this?
All the time without even thinking about it. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., man, that guy is good. He's Health and Human Services Secretary, and they're going to ban this stuff, this petroleum synthetic food dyes. It's going to be phased out. This is just the first one. They're coming after a lot of chemicals. We can eat however we want, but they're going to get...
Well, you can't, actually. If you want those things and you like the color of Skittles and all that kind of shit, you can't. You're not allowed anymore. It's not happening. Sorry, fuck you. Oh, thanks, JD.
Food manufacturers, the preparers, to get rid of...
The preparers? Mom!
Stuff, because it's poison.
Okay, then why have Republicans been against removing it for ages?
When my uncle was president, 3% of American kids had chronic disease. Today,
that's because they died young. They died early. They didn't make it this far. We have more people now, and part of the reason is people lived longer.
Around 60%. Neurological disorders, ADD, ADHD, speech delay, language delay, tics. Tourette syndrome, narcolepsy, ASD, and autism. All of these are injuries that I never heard of when I was a kid.
That's because they were diagnosed after you were a kid, when you were practically an adult. They just called it retardation back then and blew it off. They thought deaf kids were retarded. That's how they talked about it. As we studied these things, we could figure out that part of them were permanent. Some of them were environmental. You could treat some of them. Yeah. Yeah, and all the cancer diagnoses went through the fucking roof as soon as we stopped calling it consumption.
Not part of the nomenclature. They weren't part of the dialogue. There was zero spent in this country treating chronic disease when my uncle was president. Today,
right, and people just died sooner.
$1.8 trillion annually is bankrupting our nation.
No, it is not bankrupting our nation. No. Medical bills that people have that lead them to bankruptcy are not the same as treatment for chronic disease that would kill you earlier if you didn't have heart medication or something like that that adds 10 years to your fucking life. Stop it. Oh, Brenda's asking what's wrong with RFK Jr.'s voice. He has paralysis of the vocal cords. So it's like one of his vocal cords is paralyzed and only the other one works. So it cracks because of that. I don't know if it's common against syphilitic former heroin addicts, but explains his.
74% of American kids cannot qualify for military service.
Fuck you. That's not true. That's not even close to true. And also, we're not putting children in the military. By the time they go through high school, it's like all these fucking fat kids in middle school and elementary school who grow up to be like the fat girls who grew up to be like supermodels back in the day, or like pudgy kids who have a growth spurt and end up taller, or super skinny kids. I wouldn't have qualified for military service at my trajectory when I was in elementary school or middle school, because of malnutrition, when I was in 6th grade, I was 3'8" and I weighed 41 fucking pounds. I was tiny. Now, after we got some, after my dad got a real job and food started coming in, I magically sprouted. But I still never reached, my dad's 6'2". I should technically be taller. I have stunted growth from malnutrition as a Kentucky kid. And that's just a reality. I'm 5'9". I should have been taller, perhaps. But point is, if you checked in with me along those lines, I certainly would qualify by the time I was in high school. I certainly would qualify in most cases even now. So the idea that 75% of kids can't qualify is just dumb.
How are we going to maintain our global leadership with such a sick population?
That is a great question. And the food we eat is garbage.
Well, that Trump eats. Beg your pardon, but I cook at home.
We have all these autoimmune diseases, these exotic diseases. And again, I never heard of juvenile diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, Crohn's disease, and 100 others.
Yeah, because they didn't have names for them. They were newly diagnosed as separate diseases. They used to just junk them in together, and you just got a gut problem. I was born in 1969.
That were just unknown when I was a kid. I never knew anybody with a peanut allergy. I never knew anybody with a food allergy.
Because they died. They never got a chance to figure out what it was. They just fucking stopped breathing.
Why do 5 of my 7 kids have allergies? I never knew of it.
Because you don't clean?
Anybody who had eczema. I knew of a very small number of children who had asthma, but that has exploded as well today. And
asthma rates have come down since the 70s. Good Lord.
Our fertility is dropping dramatically. Teenagers in this country
Speak for yourself.
today have the same testosterone levels as 68-year-old men.
Well, that's
That's because 68-year-old men are on testosterone.
everybody's attention. And periods, girls as young as 10, there's something. And I trust him. I know he's not a doctor, but I don't care.
Hold on. We've always had like precocious puberty in some girls where they have early puberty. It's not uniformly American girls are getting their periods at 10, weirdo.
I really don't. I just trust the guy, and President Trump picked him. And oh, by the way, he's in great shape. The guy is totally ripped. He doesn't fool around out there.
He's on testosterone replacement therapy. Period. Which is fine. Do it. But don't pretend it's just like natural.
Him on the right, he's like, what, 70, 71? Now, a lot of this food, the crazy stuff, the food coloring, why don't we know more about it? It's because, well, the FDA historically has been kind of corrupt.
All of these industries cast a dark shadow historically over this agency. And there's so many conflicts that we are now systematically eliminating. That has allowed them to suppress the science. There's shockingly few studies, even on food dyes, and on all these other
Well, the Europeans don't seem to have a hard time having those studies. They've removed that shit from their food.
As well.
Well, no studies on this stuff because the Food and Drug Administration traditionally has been, well, owned by big food, big agriculture, big corporate conglomerates that want to keep things exactly the way they are. Well,
cheap and plentiful, I guess, is the idea. Yes, Republicans have been for this for a long fucking time. Hold on. Why does this get out of here? Let me move this up here. I want to, let's see, study on, food dyes, health, ramifications, 2002. Yeah. This would be, open this, 2011, 2021, 2012. Okay, so, okay, asshole. The FDA, doing this whole thing. All right, let's look at this. Food dyes, a rainbow of risks. Blue 1, blue 2, citrus red 2, green 3, orange B, red 3, red 40, yellow 5, yellow 6. There you go. Center for Science in the Public Interest, an organization that the Trump administration just cut funding to, and a study done in 2010, breaking down each one of them. This is the ADI, the Acceptable Daily Intake, CCMA, the Certified Color Manufacturers Association. This is the company, like all the abbreviations that they use in it. Here, the blue one is not found to be, let's blow this up. Plus. There we go. Blue 1 was not found to be toxic in key rat and mouse studies, but an unpublished study suggests the possibility Blue 1 causes kidney tumors in mice, and a preliminary in vitro study raised questions about possible effects on nerve cells. Blue 1 may not cause cancer, but confirmatory studies should be conducted. Blue 2 cannot be considered safe given the statistically significant incidence of tumors, particularly brain gliomas in male rats, should not be used in foods. Citrus red 2. Permitted only for coloring the skins of oranges, not used for processing, is toxic to rodents at modest levels, and causes tumors of the urinary bladder and possible other organs. The dye poses minimal human risk because it is only used as a minuscule levels and only on orange peels, but it's also no place in the food supply. Green 3. Cause significant increases in bladder and testes tumors in male rats, though the FDA considers it safe. This little-used dye must remain suspect until further testing is conducted. Orange B is approved for use only in sausage casings, but has not been used for many years. Limited industry testing did not reveal any problems. Red 3, recognized in 1990 by the FDA as a thyroid carcinogen in animals and is banned in cosmetics and externally applied drugs. All uses of Red 3 lakes, combinations of dyes and salts that are insoluble and used in low moisture foods are also banned. However, the FDA still permits Red 3 in ingested drugs and foods with about 200,000 pounds of dye being used annually. FDA needs to revoke that approval. Red 40, the most widely used red dye, may accelerate the appearance of immune system tumors in mice. The dye causes hypersensitivity, allergy-like reactions in a small number of consumers, and might trigger hyperactivity in children. Considering the safety questions and its non-essentiality, Red 40 should be excluded from foods unless and until new tests clearly demonstrated safety. Yellow 5 was not carcinogenic in rats, but not adequately tested in mice. It may be contaminated with several cancer-causing chemicals. In addition, Yellow 5 causes sometimes severe hypersensitivity reactions in a small number of people. Yellow 6 caused adrenal tumors in animals. Though it is disputed by industry and the FDA, it may be contaminated with cancer-causing chemicals and occasionally causes severe hypersensitivity reactions. Yellow 6 adds an unnecessary risk to the food supply. So this is a study from 2011. Now, National Library of Medicine, synthetic food colors and neurobehavioral hazards, the view from environmental health research. This was done in 2011. Health effects assessment. This is Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment. Potential neurobiological effects of synthetic food dyes in children. April of 2021. This is the most comprehensive study done on dyes' impact on children that has been done, and it was paid for by, in large part, the Biden administration. The mission of the Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment is to protect and enhance the health of Californians and our state government through scientific evaluation that informs, support, and guide regulatory and other actions. So that, like, California's Office of Environmental Health, through funding that they got from the Biden administration, did this big accumulation study, April 2021. Artificial colors and attention deficit hyperactivity symptoms, conclusions to die for. The effect of artificial food colors, AFCs, on child behavior has been studied for more than 35 years with accumulating evidence from imperfect studies. This article summarizes the history of this controversial topic and testimony to the 2011 Food and Drug Administration Advisory Committee convened to evaluate the current status of evidence regarding attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, features of ADHD relevant to understanding the AFC literature are explained, and supplementary stuff. This one was in 2012. So the idea that this is like new is aggravating. What is new is Republicans suddenly giving a fuck about it, and I'm for it.
Exactly the way they are killing the American people. We are sick. We're fat.
Well, again, speak for yourself.
Much heavier than I should be.
Is that what the bus driver tells you when you step on to the vehicle?
I want to make a change here. He can't change everything, but he makes this point about sugar.
There's things that we'll never be able to eliminate, like sugar. And sugar is poison. And Americans need to know that. It is poisoning us. It's giving us a diabetes crisis. When I was a kid, I always say this. A typical pediatrician would see one case of diabetes in his lifetime. Today, it's 1 out of every 3 kids who walks through his office door. In our most recent study from NIH, 38% of American teens, it's half our adult population. This is existential. We are to spend.
Yeah, but that's not sugar. That's high fructose corn syrup. That's the super sugars. And it's insulin shock from it. Again, go for it, dude. We're right behind you on that part of it. It's this weird assumption that the numbers are going to go down automatically because you put everybody on a particular diet. But understand this. However you end up doing it, it's going to be a combination of carrots and sticks. You're going to pay companies using taxpayer funds to supplement their change, or you are going to create a regulation which, if they violate it, they will be fined or shut down. That's a stick. So I don't want to hear shit about the elimination of regulations being one of the most important endeavors that a White House can do, because this is the addition of dozens upon dozens upon dozens of regulations.
As much on mitochondrial disorders like diabetes as we spend on our military budget.
Well, it's time to
That's because we're keeping people alive longer.
change, don't you think? Personally, and let's face it, some of this food, we should have known at the get-go that it was bad for us. Like, I got to give this up, and I will. Count Chocula cereal.
What? Sorry, Greg, you're still eating Count Chocula? How do you even find it?
I've eaten it as an adult. I mean, give me...
Honest to God, I would eat it as an adult if I found some, but is it still in stores?
The cereal is literally death-themed. That is a count...
So, I'm sorry. So, am I missing the naval theme with Captain Crunch?
Sweet chocolate flavor cereal marshmallow bits. Marshmallows for breakfast. Got it. Thank you very much, FDA. And then Frankenstein meat.
Wait, the FDA didn't create this. They rule on what you can put in it. It's one of the reasons some of these cereals are hard to find.
A strawberry machine. Frankenberry, another favorite. Sweet strawberry flavor cereal. Again with the marshmallows for breakfast. We do a lot of crazy things.
Yeah, but all right, hold on. Chat room, real quick. Let's bring it in. Are those marshmallows, or are those little like spongy bits of carbohydrate? Yeah, Lucky Charms, Fits, right? All these things. I wouldn't call those marshmallows. A marshmallow is a very distinct thing. It's soft, and those things are they are materially unlike a marshmallow. Period. They're not. They're like styrofoam, right? They're like packing peanuts. They're not marshmallows. That's why it says marshmallow bits, I guess. That's how they get around it. But again, another way of saying it, you put like marshmallows in hot cocoa, that's where that came from. Anyways, what we are finding out is that, holy shit, Greg Kelly eats Count Chocula.
As a society. And I'm not one for more government input, but
I guess you are.
We just might need more government input, at least with some of these manufacturers that I am so silly. I actually thought Fruit Loops was Fruit Loops. Did you notice? I didn't notice the guy with the gun in front of Trump, and I also never noticed that it doesn't say fruit.
Right, because it's not legally fruit. Yeah, I don't know if you know this, but fruit doesn't come in these like light blue rings either, or in any of these colors. At all. No. Yeah, asshole. That's why it doesn't say fruit, because there's no fruit in it.
Because they can't, because it's all chemicals and no fruit. So goodbye to all that.
Jesus Christ. Did you go through your fucking cabinets? What kind of a toddler are you?
Goodbye to my precious giant gummy bears.
What? Hold on. I have a hard time eating the small ones. You gnaw on these fucking things? The hell is that? It looks like a dog toy. Nobody eats those.
Last one.
Wait a minute. You eat those things? I think it. You know what? RFK Jr., you need to do like an intervention with Greg Kelly. I think if we can point to anything that clearly there are cognitive effects caused by these things, because Greg was dumb already. But I think we might have found the precursor to his current wave of idiocy.
I just think he's onto something. And he took a big shot at the media. Because why isn't this stuff discussed more often? Why are we always talking about silly things like the Signal chat or just stuff that doesn't matter?
Sorry, our soldiers' battle plans being leaked, so that might put their lives in danger. We shouldn't talk about it. Silly. Yeah, why aren't we talking about the chemicals in Greg Kelly's favorite snacks as a grown toddler?
Well, the media...
I guess the bigger question is, why are you showing an image of Kellyanne Conway taking pictures from 2017?
many ways have been bought off.
Media malpractice, mass psychosis that has our media not talking about this. And one of the possible reasons for that is the amount of money that's coming from the pharmaceutical companies into our media and from these food.
Yeah, because it never could come from the agribusiness companies that sell the cereal like General Mills.
Companies.
He's right. He is totally right. And you'll notice that you watch TV, we're very...
So what you're suggesting is that we have, I don't know, a Food and Drug Administration or something that's put together, like the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, that actually protects people from chemicals in their food that might be doing them harm, but they won't know it's doing them harm until it's too late, and therefore you need government intervention to do this. As in, taxpayer money taken to fund a program to help people. Jesus Christ. It's amazing. It's almost like they're Greg Kelly, you're being forcibly turned into a Democrat.
Dependent here. We can do our own thing, but the other guys, well, just watch. Why didn't they have, why were they so reticent about concerns about drugs? Maybe this is the answer.
What? Concerns? Oh.
By Pfizer. ABC News Nightline. Brought to you by Pfizer.
Making a difference. Brought to you by Pfizer.
CNN Tonight. Brought to you by Pfizer. Early Start. Brought to you by Pfizer. Friday night on Aaron Burnett.
From @died suddenly. This is an anti-vaxxer site that just put together this idea that Pfizer buys ads on news programs, therefore the news will never turn on Pfizer.
Brought to you.
Doesn't Moderna compete with Pfizer? Doesn't AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson compete with Pfizer? So are they turning against the other quote-unquote big pharmas by going with Pfizer?
By Pfizer. This Week with George Stephanopoulos is brought to you by Pfizer.
This weather report brought to you by Pfizer.
Today's countdown to the royal wedding is brought to you by Pfizer.
Again, he's playing this.
By Pfizer. And who's that aimed at? I don't know if it's aimed at, like, consumers. I'm going to go out and buy something by Pfizer. Maybe it's aimed at the media, at lawmakers, big, don't mess.
Maybe they have to let you know. And will you let go of that fucking gummy bear?
Us, or we'll stop the money flow. I think that makes a lot of sense.
I see. So if they go against Pfizer, then Moderna will buy the ad space, or AstraZeneca, or Johnson & Johnson?
Back to the petroleum synthetic food dyes.
Which are not made by Pfizer.
Petroleum synthetic, how can that get into food? Well, it makes things look nicer, cleaner. This is a French documentary. They have no problem taking on the big food people.
Oh, you mean Europeans? You mean we should have food rules like Europeans? What the fuck? This is what Democrats have been saying for fucking 2 decades.
And they're talking about why they put the dye in the meat, especially when it's ham. They want to make the ham look nice and pretty. The guy's speaking in French for part of it, but that...
Oh, that hurts. We're going to have to listen to a foreign language? What the hell? What the hell, Greg?
Saying.
Il va agir en donnant une coloration rosée, en fait.
A color rosé, a pink color.
In fact, he's telling us that the pretty pink of our ham isn't natural at all. It's thanks to sodium nitrite. This additive fixes the pink of the meat during cooking. Otherwise, ham would be the color of roast pork. That's why food industrialists can't do without it, as a processed meats producer would confirm.
Yeah, we can't have the ham looking white like turkey. People will think we are giving them turkey ham, which we have to color turkey to make it look like ham, because people would rather be eating turkey, but they want it to look and taste like ham. So we flavor it and color it like ham to make the turkey, but we don't want it The worst thing it could do is look like turkey because the people who eat turkey are like, I like turkey, but I want my turkey to look like ham.
Vraiment pour la couleur, parce que je vous dis, le jambon doit être rose, la viande doit être rose, elle doit pas être brune, parce que sinon on va me dire qu'elle est pas fraîche ou qu'elle est, etc. Donc en clair, je cuis une viande, ça donne un jambon gris. C'est ce qu'il faudrait faire.
Oui, formidable. If the meat were brown and was ham, they wouldn't buy it. It's got to be pink. Kind of makes sense. And same for the gummy bear. I guess if this thing were gray or, I don't know, weirdly green, it wouldn't be cute anymore. And I wouldn't take a bite out of it.
Jesus. I got to say, like, that level of red and that size, that looks fucking gross.
A few moments ago. Look, it's time, don't you think?
Yes, Greg, grow the fuck up. Stop eating Count Chocula. You can have it once in a while, but stop eating your lonely bowl of Count Chocula every night at home, you sad, pathetic fuck.
Americans 50 years ago or so on the beach, you had to look pretty hard for somebody who was a little bit plus size. These days, it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier. So this is all Trump's doing, by the way. He has given Robert F. Kennedy Jr. the green light to make stuff happen, to make America healthy.
Yeah, to give him Ozempic.
And I love it. Now, presidents normally don't do this. Presidents are normally along for the ride. The agency determines what's going to happen. They might give the president, what do you choose, A, B, or C? The president has a choice from what the swamp actually brings to him or her. It's supposed to be the top down.
All right, again, that's, yeah, suddenly Trump is the only one who actually picks his cabinet. So odd. Anyways, there you go. So it shouldn't be shocking that Greg Kelly is one of those assholes that if you take him to a sushi restaurant, he only gets teriyaki chicken because he's a fucking boy. You know that guy? You know who that guy is? Some of you might be that guy. I'm sorry if you're that guy, but if we go out to eat sushi, we're eating raw fish. That's what it's for. If you want to go to a Japanese restaurant and eat chicken teriyaki, knock yourself out, but you don't get to cop the fuck out. You know exactly who I'm talking to. You're sitting there right there. You're watching me now. And California rolls, exactly. Okay, we can raid Boston Brian. I think the timing would be perfect on something like that. He should be on, yeah, let me jump back in here. But for the record, I think it's amazing that RFK Jr. is doing stuff now that Democrats have been talking about for a long time, minus the fucking anti-vaxxer bullshit. That he's been doing a ton of stuff that Democrats have been talking about for a while that Trump is suddenly for because he's a dough-headed dipshit. So, hold on, I'm going to go in here, and we're going to start a raid of our dear friend Boston Brian because he's awesome, and I'm going to send you guys over there. Take care of yourselves and take care of somebody else, and tell them I said hi. And subscribe, especially if you're going over there on Twitch. Subscribe to both our channels. There you go. All right, off you go. Let's see. I'll do that. And remember, it's okay. I'm not here to yuck anybody's yum, okay?
I like wood.
I'm just saying. It's all right, okay? And we're going to raid 3, 2, 1. Off we go. Did it work? Yeah, there we go. Raid! So... Sparks raid. Okay, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Take care, and I'm looking forward to watching Pete Hegseth slowly, metaphorically, roasted over a spit by Trump and his people until they kick him to the fucking curb. Because it's coming, kids. It's coming. All right. Thank you guys so much for the support. Thank you for hitting those likes and sharing the show and the thumbs up and all that kind of stuff. We will see you later. Look at all those subscribers. Thanks, guys. Look at the members. Look at that. Look at the cheers. Look at the bosses. Matt, thank you for the super chat. Govan, thank you. JD Christie, thank you, Caroline. Also, if you're on Facebook, throw some stars our way. That apparently started working again. Maybe. We hope. Sort of. Subscribe on Twitch. If you have Amazon Prime, it doesn't cost you a dime. Off we